Hi, welcome to my fully road legal K100RS. I have finally got it through the MOT after the first failure a couple of weeks ago and my second attempt when my brake locked up and a whole load of stuff got damaged. But now I've gone through, I've MOT'd it, it's got a completely clean sheet, and when I went to tax it, it said on the government website this is the first time it's been taxed since 1994. So the only time I can see the MOT history online is back to 2005 when it went digital. Looks like it's been off the road since about 94. So in the 8 years it's been made, so it's 86 to 94. 8 years, it's done 38,000 miles, and I'm now starting a fresh history with it, up and running on the road. All I've got to do now is just ride the bike. There's quite a bit I've done to get it up to this point. It did not come like this, and what I'll do is I'll just walk you around everything I've done. Overall, I paid about 500 quid, I believe it was, on eBay for the main bike itself. There's been quite a few additional parts, but all in all, it's cost me just about £1,000 to get it to this point. And what I'll do is I'll walk you through everything I've done. Most of that additional 500 in parts was in the tank here. This fuel sender assembly was 200 quid, and it was 100 odd quid for the front brake disc. Everything else has been quite cheap, picked up off eBay, but that 350 quid, the other 150 will come through. Biggest win of which was 25 quid for most of the fairings and that exhaust down there. But what I'll do is take you around everything I've done to get up and running. I'm really happy. I drove to the MOT centre and back. It sounded great, and now I just really want to get it out on the road before I decide what to do with it next. There's still some work to be done, which we'll go through at the end. And now, let's take you through everything I've done to get us this far, and we'll go front to back to make life a bit more fun. Starting off at the front wheel here, I've not had to do anything with the wheel or tyre because that came pre-powder coated with fresh tyres. What I have had to do is replace this disc on this side because the other one was cracked. I've also had to put new mudguard on because I broke the mudguard when I had my accident. I've also put on 2 new calipers after rebuilding the calipers, 2 sets of brake discs. My brakes locked up on my second attempt to go and get an MOT, and I think that was due to the brake line being swollen, but also the fact that I bought cheap calipers and I don't think they fit particularly well. So I got better pads to go in the calipers, which have a nicer fit. And I've also replaced the brake lines for standard brake lines, which go up to this wide piece underneath here. Also around the front, I was missing the pinch bolts on one side, so that's been sorted, and I think that's everything I've done on the front tyre. Radiator now has a garden cover over it, a whole new front fairing stain, light bulb, light bulbs, light fitting, screen, indicators, mirrors. All the wiring in there I've actually had to redo from scratch. I've had to replace 2 indicator switches, one because I broke it on the accident, and one because it was damaged already. I have not had to replace the clocks, conveniently enough, and all the lights and everything do work on all the clocks. The choke all works, didn't have to replace the cable. That's all been good around the front there. I had to hunt down this inner panel fairing here, and same on that side. I had to replace the mirror glass. That was a separate purchase. The mirrors I ended up buying second-hand, which were blue and red. One with glass, one without. And I had to just basically replace the glass, replace the light bulbs, replace the lens cover here on one of them because it was cracked. Also replaced the bolts that secure it just there. Coming around the front here, I've also rebuilt the initial master cylinder for the front brake. That failed and leaked, so I got a second master because I thought not just the piston may have been pitted. That one was filthy, but cleaned up okay. I thought it was leaking until I realised it just rained the morning of, and that fluid was just water. But with the old leak, if you come around this side, you can see it actually caused a little bit of damage to the paintwork. I have replaced the fuel cap, mainly because I just thought it's pretty. I also had to replace when I was doing the original cabling setup and the original brake line setup, the lower triple clamp, because that is got a tube going through it and that doesn't seem the same consistent across all the models. I have also put in a nice oil temperature gauge on the oil fill. I have a new rear brake switch and 2 new side foot hangers. That is because I broke one on one side, but I brought a pair because the hinge wasn't working for my rear setup, and I thought that would be easier and actually worked out cheaper to buy a whole assembly than it was just to get 2 new ones of those. In the fuel tank, we have a new fuel pump and a new fuel sender assembly. That was really expensive. So towards the back here, we have a new rack. I bought that secondhand, cleaned that up and painted it. I have new original indicators, cleaned that up, painted up, sanded it. The rear brakes, I only needed to give just a bit of a clean and put some new pads in. That's gone through. As you can see, I've got a new rear shock that came with the bike, so that was quite a nice deal. Down the back here, you'll see there's a new battery. Also put on a little reflector so I can pass an MOT. An exhaust from a K100RS 16 valve, so I think it was a 92 bike, 93 bike it came off of. The other thing I've done is I've got a side stand now, and then I've obviously replaced the spark plugs to get all of that up and running. And that's all the replacements I've done. All in all, most of it was quite cheap. Some highlights of expensive items. Getting the mirrors, I think they were 50 quid to get them. These little panel pieces I actually got as a set with some other pieces, which I've then since sold to recoup the money I spent. But if I had just bought them on their own, they were like 15, 20 quid a piece. All of this section, these sides, this side panel, all came complete. When I got the brake line set up, I also got a spare front wheel and a spare set of forks, which are currently in my back there. So if I include those, that was 100 quid for all of that. So it's quite a bit, but say the big expenses were fuel sender assembly and that Brembo disc around the front, because I thought I'd put a new one on rather than a second-hand job. All right, so that's everything I've had to do to date. It's not too bad. Most of it's replacing a few bolts, cleaning stuff up, servicing stuff, and that leads me up to where I've got to go next. Main thing for me is to ride it and see if I enjoy it. I've only done 10 miles so far and I've had quite a good time, mainly because I was so excited to be finally riding it after 6 months. But there's still a few things to do, like it does need a good service. I've checked all the fluids, but I haven't replaced all the fluids. I've checked the air filter, but I haven't replaced it. That all looks quite clean and relatively replaced, but by the previous owner and not me. I would like to rebreed the bikes because they're not fantastic feeling. Just not a bit squishy. I think before I spend any money on the bike though, I need to ride it and really see how I get on. It feels very comfortable for what I've ridden so far. It sounds great from my opinion. I've enjoyed, say, my 10 miles, but that could be just a new bike high. Once I've ridden it for a little while, I'll know where I want to go. I think a service is definitely in the diary for this. It's not going to be too expensive. It's going to be just a pain in the ass. I've been sorting out the high idle as well, and that's all come through fine, nice. It was just a case of adjusting the screw down the front, where someone, either myself or the previous owner, had been tinkering with it. But now it's just riding and seeing where I get up to. If I'm going to keep the bike, there's a few things I'd like to do. I'd like to replace the front lines with braided, because I think that would improve the feel of the front brake, and it does feel a bit dodgy. I'd like to find some decent bar ends to go on here and clean that up. I think that's really important. And then it's just aesthetics. I have all the pieces. I think a better side panel here on the right hand side for the fairing would be nice, so it's more complete rather than scratched. But I think realistically it just needs a good sand down, a paint. I'd like to tidy up my wiring now I know it all works. I can get my test tape out and just tape that up nice and securely. But I'm really happy. The seating position's good, it feels comfortable. I may revert this back to stock just so it has a completely stock look on it, but I do like the ease of just unspinning that and just going straight into the tank. That's quite convenient. But for now, I've spent, as I say, in the region of £1,000, and it has an MOT for 12 months. In 2 years' time, little under, I believe it's March 1986 this was made, according to the document, I'll be able to turn around to make this historic, which means I can ride it to London for free, won't pay MOT and tax on it anymore, which is quite nice. So that's not far away, 18 months or so. So I may keep it that long, and in which case, if I do, it's definitely due for a repaint. It might be something I try myself, but in the driveway here, it does get quite windy and I don't have very inside to really let it dry. For now, really happy. I think I could have bought a bike complete for a few £100 more, and I wouldn't have had half the hassles I've had. And that may have been a smart thing. But for me, I now know this bike well. I know how it all goes together, where things are. I feel much more intimately connected to the bike because I've spent all this time making it work. And it does work. It's not perfect yet, but I think a usable bike to see if you enjoy it before making it perfect. It's not about making a perfect restoration for me. It's about putting a bike back on the road, and this hasn't been on the road since 1994. That's a long time for someone to get it up and running from his driveway for about £500-600, including the MOT. And insurance for me isn't bad. I'm over 40, so it's £100 for a year for this to be fully comp. That's less than the road tax cost. So it's cheap motoring for me. I think I'll do a few more little tweaks, like I've got to find somewhere to mount my quad lock so I got some navigation when I'm going places. But no, that's me done. I'm really happy. If anyone's got any suggestions on colour schemes, I am personally leaning to not be standard and going for some kind of rich green, to have a green and gold with the wheels. I think that's where my mind's going. Obviously, a lot of it does need painting, but I don't really know for now. So that's what I've done so far. That's how much it's roughly cost me. I really recommend it. If anyone's got any suggestions or things that they think I've missed or I should check before I spend too much more time on the road, let me know. I feel pretty comfortable. I'm happy to take it now and start expanding my distances. I'll do a couple more test rides locally before I take it out for an all-day affair. Then afterwards I'll report back and see how that feels. But for now, that's it on the K100. I'm going to probably go back onto the Boxer rather, and get a few more things sorted on that. But thanks very much, and say if anyone's got any suggestions or things that I've missed, let me know. Cheers.